Dust from the Katmai eruption, the most violent after Krakatoa in historic time, spread a haze over half the world and lowered the temperature of the northern hemisphere nearly 2 degrees. 1912 is remembered as a year without summer. The heaviest ashfall covered an area of 3,000 square miles. Buildings collapsed in Kodiak, 100 miles from Mount Katmai. The town was left in isolation and total darkness for 3 days. Kodiak's entire population sought escape on the Coast Guard cutter Manning. But the Manning was trapped in the nearly total blackout of the ashfall. Not until 4 days after the eruptions began were the people of Kodiak able to leave the ship and return to their homes. Storms of pumice and powdery ash all but entombed dwellings along the Shelikof coast. Katmai village and Savanoski remain abandoned today. Yet these ancestral home sites hold a place of honor in the hearts and minds of native peoples. A thick layer of ash fell on the Inland Lakes region to the northwest of Mount Katmai, speeding the decay of nutrients on the forest floor. Annual growth rings tell the story of a doubling and tripling of tree growth in the years following. A botanist, not a geologist, Griggs was apparently wrong in his account of the 1912 eruption. He concluded that Mount Katmai's immense crater was the main vent of the eruptive material. More recent studies point to Novarupta as the main vent. This new volcano was thought to have drained Katmai of its underlying magma, causing its summit to collapse. Other theories of the eruption sequence also are under scientific investigation. Novarupta is plugged today by a pile of Vulcan rubble 1/4 of a mile across. During the eruption, Novarupta poured a slurry of ash and pumice into the high valley of the Yukak River. It rolled downhill at speeds of more than 100 miles an hour. Griggs Valley of 10,000 Smokes was created by jets of gas and water vapor, which broke through the crust of the deposit as it cooled at the surface. Landscape, environment, and human lives linked to Katmai all were changed in June 1912. Eternal, unrelenting change is the only constant in nature. Before the eruption, Katmai was the dominant peak in the region. Collapse of the summit cut its height 1,000 feet, altering the profile of the Aleutian Mountains. In the caldera, accumulated snows and freezing rain have since created a glacier, the only one on Earth whose age is known precisely. Beginning almost with the formation of the Valley of 10,000 Smokes, Aleutian meltwater began eroding it away, day by day. The last of the super-hot fumaroles died out recently, although Griggs predicted they would outlast the geysers of Yellowstone. In the speed of its geologic evolution, the valley, at any given moment, seems half real, half mirage. In defiance of a hostile environment, life is returning to the valley, transforming it to a gentler terrain. In the spring of 1912, before the eruption, Griggs' Valley of 10,000 Smokes was green and wet, much like the valleys around it today. Wrong about the eruption, wrong also about the fumaroles, Griggs was among the first Americans to recognize the value of Katmai as a sanctuary for wildlife. The region is held in trust today as much for its wilderness values as for the study of volcanism. Since the eruption, nobody has lived in Katmai year-round. Yet more people visit here in the span of a few summers than lived here for 1,000 years before 1912. Many visitors head out for the Valley of 10,000 Smokes, to walk across the erupted marrow of the mountains, perhaps to touch the fire that inspired Griggs, perhaps to feel the heaving of the land where Vulcan rose from his sleep a lifetime ago. An eruption like Katmai's in New York City would send all its broken skyscrapers rocketing to oblivion. The city of Chicago would hear Manhattan blowing up. Philadelphia would suffocate in dust and darkness. This is the measure of violence that fell upon Katmai in 1912, a violence that gave it a special page in the modern geologic history of the Earth, a violence that shapes its being today.